President Trump is expected to sign an executive order within the next couple of hours today, protecting free speech on college campuses. The move tackles what many in America decry as a coordinated attack on free speech, especially that of right-wing students at colleges across the country. Though few details are yet out, sources have reported the order will threaten to strip federal research dollars from schools that fail to protect student speech. So joining me now to discuss, former journalism professor Lyle Slack. And might I add, for transparency, my former teacher, Professor Slack. Professor, good to see you. So let's start here.
And you.
In your experience as an educator, are censorship and restrictions on speech as much of a burning crisis on today's campuses as the president is saying it is?
I'm not sure I would describe it as a burning crisis, but I think it's a significant issue. There have been incidents just in the last 18 months or so at Dartmouth and Sarah Lawrence, University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Chicago. And there's also a very active movement on the part of the Israeli lobby to shut down debate about the boycott movement on Israel at many of the campuses across both the U.S. and Canada. So I think it's a significant issue, and I think it's actually good that Trump is doing something.
And, you know, because of who's spearheading this issue, it's President Trump, I think people tend to focus. Yes. They focus a lot on conservative students whose events and the speakers have been shut out by protesters, and they've evolved, or devolved, I should say, into violent mobs sometimes. But as you mentioned, the BDS movement, stuff like that, this issue can affect left-wing students on the other side as well. So isn't this a bipartisan issue that should be addressed not only by the president, but by the colleges themselves?
Absolutely. It is a intolerance issue on both sides. And it's also cyclical. You know, when I was a student, the college that I went to happened to be very conservatively minded and attempted to expel me for starting a student newspaper that espoused progressive views. So we've come full circle in a few years, and you can see that the same kind of thing. But there's an incident even now at the University of Chicago where a professor who was teaching a constitutional law course about freedom of speech as protected by the Constitution has become the subject of effort to remove him because he used the N-word in discussing what constitutes protected speech and what doesn't. And in that instance, it was simply an academic discussion. The Supreme Court has made it plain that really it's speech that incites violence and that is not protected.
Right, and I believe that was used in context of literature that he was addressing. Was that right?
That particular case is a different one where the professor was discussing literature by black writers using the N-word, and even that was found objectionable. We really have to try to make a distinction between speech that's used to incite somebody to really demean them very directly, personally, and speech that's used in the context of an academic discussion.
And I'm sure you've heard your fair share of politically incorrect or offensive things on campus. Hopefully I wasn't one of them that was too offensive, but probably some instances of political correctness that has kind of gone wild, right? People have become kind of overly PC, perhaps even overly sensitive. Is there a way for government to find that fine line and really enforce it and make it real in the real world?
I think there is, and I think the Supreme Court has already, defined what that is. And if I can just consult the fighting words doctrine of the constitutional law, it limits speech that is meant specifically to incite violence. And most of what we're talking about here is obviously not that. It's in the context of a academic discussion. So I think the pendulum has swung too far toward political correctness, that in an effort to protect minorities and others who have been discriminated in the past, that we've gone too far in terms of shutting down legitimate debate, and so that, especially at the university level, where this is where all of those things really should be debated in an open and civilized manner.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Lyle Slack. We've got to leave it right there. Thank you for your expertise in this.
You're welcome. Bye.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.